So someone asked me recently, one, do I still get nervous after 8 years of filmmaking and working with clients? And two, do I still make mistakes, and what mistakes do I make? Do I get nervous? No, not really. But do I still make mistakes? Yeah, I'm a human. I still make mistakes even after 8 years, and after working with hundreds of clients. There's just times where things are moving quick. My mind may not be in the right place. I didn't sleep well because I have 2 little kids. A whole list of factors. But I wanted to cover 5 mistakes that I definitely experienced early on in my career. 5 mistakes that really hurt me at times, caused me a lot of pain, and caused me to wonder whether I should keep going. And then some mistakes that still kind of come up, but I've figured out processes and learned how to avoid those mistakes. And I want to share those with you so that you can hopefully, as a beginner or maybe a few years into your journey, you can avoid those mistakes. I actually recently, 2 weeks ago, made a mistake on set. I was working with a corporate client, filming 7 interviews that day. On the 5th interview, I was running 2 cameras by myself. I was running external audio. And we got about 5 minutes into this interview, and I realized that I hadn't started the audio for the lav mic. I hadn't even initiated it. I hadn't even looked down and checked it out, and it wasn't rolling. So all I had was the audio coming from the onboard mic on the cameras, which we all know is not very good. And I was not going to use that. So I was at cut. And I owned up to it right then and there. I said, guys, I'm so sorry. I did not start rolling the lav. Let's roll it back. And yes, you got to get past the awkwardness of when somebody says, oh, we need to roll it all the way back. Yes, we need to roll it all the way back. We need to start from the very beginning. But those are those things that you realize that again, I'm a human. I make mistakes. Go ahead and just own up to those mistakes in the moment so that you can correct them in the moment. And again, like I said, we were only 5 minutes in. It wasn't going to be that big of a deal at the end of the interview to just go back and start over. Honestly, the person was probably going to deliver their lines better now that they hadn't had a chance to warm up and knew what they wanted to say. But yeah, I made a mistake. Even that was just 2 weeks ago. So number 1 is moving too fast. When you get on set as a beginner, often we're nervous. We have this nervous energy. We're kind of wondering, what our composition's going to be. We're wondering when the talent's going to come in. We're wondering how we're going to light it. We're wondering whether we should even format our card. Did we even back up the footage that we have on our card? These things that are running through our mind are freaking us out when we get on set. And so what it often causes us to do, it often causes us to move too fast. And I know the reality is if we're filming with a C-suite executive for a corporate film, I've done that several times. When we're filming with those folks, yes, there is urgency because those people's time is very short that we have with them because their time within an organization is very valuable. So there is some speed that we need to have, but I would say in most scenarios, we're the ones causing ourselves to feel rushed and hurried. It's not really the client. And so what we need to do first and foremost is just remind ourselves to slow down, that if we need to have another 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's fine. Most clients are totally happy to give us that amount of time to especially make sure that what we're doing is right, that our composition is good, that our lighting is thought through, that we have our audio set up and ready to roll, that our card is formatted, that we're just prepared. So number 1 is just slow yourself down. If you feel internally that you're freaking out on set, slow down and don't be afraid to ask the client if you can have another 5 minutes, if you can have another 10 minutes. That's totally fine. And you should do that because at the end of filming, you're going to be proud that you did that because your footage is going to probably look way better. Your audio levels are going to be where they need to be. Your lighting is going to be intentional. Everything's just going to be better for it. And honestly, we worry ourselves with, how's the client going to act if I ask for 10 more minutes? It's not going to be a big deal because you're going to make everything better having slowed down and use those 10 minutes intentionally to get everything right. The second one is to just be open and honest, especially with our clients. We're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. So we need to be honest with our clients when we make those mistakes, but have already thought through how we can try and resolve the situation. There may be times where we can't resolve it. For instance, for me, there's a real example of I filmed a live event in another city and I missed one of the key people that they wanted to capture during one of their breakout sessions. I just totally missed it. And so when I got back and was processing the footage and giving them, edits, they were like, hey, where's this person? And I was thinking like, I missed them. I didn't capture them. And I was just honest. Like, it sucked so bad, but I was honest with them. I was upfront, and I just told them, I said, I must have missed them. I'm really sorry. How can I make it up? In that scenario, there was no resolution that I could figure out. I didn't have footage of the person. There was no way I was going to be able to add them to the edit or have anything of them in any edit. So I had to ask them, how can I make it up to you? And at this point, I really thought I was going to lose this client forever. I thought it's likely that my mistake is going to ruin this relationship. But what happened is, when you're honest and you own up to your mistakes and you ask if you can correct somehow, if you can somehow make it right, somehow make it better, then that leads to an opportunity. And that's what they did. They said, okay, well, could you actually edit this guy's footage from some other breakout sessions and try to make something of the footage that he already has? So I did that. I made a good edit out of footage that they already had. And that really impressed them. Even though I had made a mistake, I resolved it in another way, and that really impressed them. And doing that has led to my biggest retainer client relationship, a retainer client that pays me close to $80,000 a year because of a mistake. I made a mistake, but I owned up to it, was honest, and figured out how I could make it right for them. So that is a key tip for you, that you need to be honest in everything that you do. The third one is not calling things out. And this is a little bit more important when you're working in a team of two or more than just yourself, a one-man band. What's important is, if you're running multiple cameras, if you're running maybe multiple lines of audio or just maybe one external line of audio, you need to call things out. And I learned this after being on set with a bigger production, a bigger crew. I heard them saying, A cam speed, B cam speed, audio speed, C cam speed. I was like, interesting. It's interesting that they're calling all of this out while they're on production. And so that really influenced me. Is that a lot of my mistakes I was making when I had, somebody filming with me, is I wasn't calling out, A cam is speed, B cam is speed. And if you don't know what speeding means, speed means recording, it's rolling. So you can say whatever you want to say. You could say A cam rolling, B cam rolling, audio rolling, but calling things out when you're on set just, again, slows down for a second. Everybody takes about 10 seconds to intentionally look and see, is my camera rolling? Do I see the red light on there? Do I see the record on there? Is my audio rolling? Have I looked at the levels? Are the levels peaking? Are they too low? It's that 10 seconds of calling things out on set that slows you down. Make sure that it's like a quality control, quality assurance, and make sure that everything is rolling, everything's in sync. And you roll through your first shots, and then once you get to a point, A cam cut, B cam cut, audio cut, call it out. What this also does for clients is it shows them how intentional you are to make sure that everything is synchronized. Doing this is not going to disrupt a client. It's only going to make that client trust you more, that you're taking the time to do those things. So that is a lesson that it took me several years to learn, that you need to call things out for quality control. And that is hugely important. You can even do that yourself if you're just a one-man band. I did that recently. It was, okay, A cam's rolling, B cam's rolling, audio's rolling, let's go. The fourth mistake is not thinking about your shots, especially B-roll shots, in terms of a sequence. So beginning, middle, and end, or wide shots, medium shots, tight shots. I know when I was a beginner for the first few years, I normally always had a lot of medium shots. I didn't normally have a lot of tight shots because, the tight shots, you've got to move closer. You got to get closer to people. You've got to get sometimes in people's space. And that's awkward for a beginner videographer, is to enter into that space and overcome that fear. Or there were times when I had too many wide shots because, again, I was afraid of going in for the medium and tight shots. So I just had a bunch of wide shots. And when you get back to try and edit that and you only have wide shots, that's not telling a story. That's not going to effectively be a good film to deliver. So what you need to do is think in terms of sequencing. So when you show up somewhere, you want to establish with your wide shots. You want to show the viewer where you're at. And then you want to move into the medium shots that are going to get you closer to the subject, that are going to establish the subject. And then you want to get into the tight shots, which are really going to help you get closer to the subject, where you can feel emotion, where you can connect with the subject or subjects. and you want to have a good range. You want to have diversity within all those shots. That is called sequencing. So if you could even think in terms of 3-shot sequences, wide, I'm going to establish, I'm going to move in, and I'm going to get tight. Sequencing your shots and thinking in terms of sequencing when you're on set is going to lead to a really, really good edit. And it's going to lead to you having diversity in your shots to be able to pick from, which is going to make your film that much better. Again, as an amateur, as a beginner, you're typically getting one type of shot, maybe just mediums, maybe just wides, often not a lot of tights. So you need to think in terms of beginning, middle, and end, wide, medium, tight, and get a full range of those, get plenty of coverage. And if you don't have plenty of coverage of those, you need to be looking through your footage and seeing what you're missing and going back and filming more of that to make sure that you have plenty of coverage. And fifth, I'm going to call it out. I'm just going to go ahead and call it out. Not shifting to manual focus, staying in autofocus. This was something for years. I just played it safe in autofocus. These days with cameras, have incredible autofocus, and it's tempting to want to just stick with that and make sure that we're safe in having a shot that is in focus. But the problem is that if every single shot is in focus, our films are just going to feel a little unnatural. The amazing thing about manual focus is that it starts to introduce some shots or some moments that are not completely perfectly in focus. And I think that's just the organic nature of life that we need to bring into our films. Is when we always have everything in perfect focus with autofocus, it's just a little too polished. It's a little too perfect. We need to start bringing in manual focus, one, because we want to have control over directing the viewer where they need to look. It's also going to help us with our composition, because if we're just relying on autofocus, it's tempting to keep subjects right in the very middle of the frame versus having a more unique composition where we're maybe over in this direction and over here we have focus looking at something, and just being intentional with that. So I would encourage you, the mistake that I made was just staying in autofocus. When I've shifted to manual focus, I'm typically a lot more excited and a lot more pleased with those shots because they just feel more natural. They ultimately look better, and it just really helps make a film it just has a better feel, a more organic feel to it. So those are five mistakes that I've made plenty of times over and over and over again. And like I said, even just 2 weeks ago on that interview, I didn't slow down. And pay attention. I didn't even call things out to myself. And because of that, I made the mistake of not recording the audio and having to go back. So it happens. We're humans. It still happens. It still happens to me. But those are 5 mistakes that I really encourage you to take from my own experience. Try to avoid them. Write those down. Write those down in a journal. Write those down in something that you can carry with you. So when you're on set, you can remind yourself, slow down, call things out, sequence my shots, go to manual focus. Be honest with the client. If I need to get more footage, or if somebody didn't say something right in their interview or they misspoke, be honest. Hey, we need to do a retake. Slow down. That's the biggest one. Slow down and just focus and enjoy the art of videography. And at the end of the day too, just give yourself some grace, because you realize you are a human. You're going to make mistakes. It's part of it. But each day we can get better and implement better processes to protect ourselves from making mistakes so often. All right, guys, if you enjoy this video, I would love it if you hit that like button. And if you're enjoying this content and want to see more of it, to subscribe, because that really encourages me to keep going. And I want to keep going. So, all right, y'all, I will see you on the next video. Peace.